Hello there, and welcome back to the Dispatch. I'm Tom Gandley. Let's open up the Dispatch and see what we've got. Nationally, inflation continues its upward trend, the CPI being reported at 8.5% for the month of March. That's the highest in 40 years. No longer a high-class problem, as White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain once fatuously called it. Essentials like milk, eggs, and bread are up an average of about 10% each. Gasoline is up over $2 a gallon since just under 2 years ago. The last time gasoline rose this quickly, it was estimated by economists that every 25% increase nationally of the price of gasoline subtracted $30 billion annually from discretionary spending by Americans. In New York City, a massive manhunt underway for a subway shooter who, in what appears to be a very well-planned, coordinated attack, injured over 25 people in the Sunset Park section of Brooklyn. The shooter, described as a black man about 5'5" and weighing about 200 pounds, first set off a smoke-producing device, then began shooting into the crowd of passengers randomly. There may very well have been more casualties, except that it appears, fortunately, that the criminal's gun jammed. All the injured are expected to survive, despite some being in critical condition. In his latest betrayal of the American citizen, Joe Biden has repealed the Title 42 law that ordered the immediate return or deportation of any illegal immigrant who tested positive for or had symptoms of COVID-19. Border Patrol authorities, already at their wits' end, overworked and understaffed because of Biden's charade of border protection and Kamala Harris' snickering ineptitude, can expect now to deal with thousands more illegals on a daily basis. This is occurring at the same time Philadelphia, Pennsylvania has re-upped the mask mandates, despite scientists' research showing they hardly had any bearing on containing the virus. Attach this open borders arrogance with the facts that illegals are being flown by the thousands into heartland American cities. Thousands of pounds of fentanyl have been confiscated by drug smugglers at a time when a crisis of opioid overdoses are killing at an epidemic level. And the presence of more low-wage workers will, again, stagnate wages for American citizens, and the immigration storm and humanitarian crisis at the border are far greater concerns than COVID-19. In a further attempt to keep the January 6, 2020 insurrection hoax fruitful, a left-wing group calling itself Free Speech for People has filed lawsuits with the goal of banning GOP Representatives Gosar and Biggs from appearing on the November 2022 election ballots in Maricopa County, Arizona. Their attempt relies heavily on using the 14th Amendment, which states no one shall hold office if they have engaged in insurrection or rebellion. According to the Washington Times, these elected representatives, along with a state representative, Mark Fincham, are described in the lawsuit as having supported the January 6th rioters that entered the U.S. Capitol that day, causing some destruction and rioting before departing voluntarily after several hours. The frivolous nature of this lawsuit should get them dismissed immediately, since none of the elected officials named ever engaged in insurrection or rebellion, as per the 14th Amendment. In a victory for both freedom of expression and merit-based success in college and other elite school admissions, Dr. Harry Jackson successfully defended against charges of libel and slander which arose out of tweets he posted regarding the actions of one Jorge Tirico in 2020. The charges were likely pursued by another leftist Democrat, George Soros-funded prosecutor, since Jackson denounced the largely race-based admissions policies of the Thomas Jefferson High School for Science in Alexandria, Virginia. Tirico was a vocal opponent of standardized testing admissions and written teacher recommendations, preferring to apply more value to the color of a kid's skin rather than their educational aptitude and potential. This school policy for admissions has been ruled discriminatory against Asians at the federal level and may soon be headed to the Supreme Court. In recent NBC polling, the GOP base is soaring in the enthusiasm department. Although the Republicans have a 2-point advantage at 46% versus the Democrats' 44% of those questioned, other poll numbers indicate a far wider margin between the two, which is a better than fair indication of success in the upcoming midterm elections in November. NBC claims the current environment appears a lot like 2010's midterm during Obama's first 4 years in office. You may recall that 2010 midterm saw one of the largest losses of House seats in U.S. history, as the GOP picked up a whopping 63 seats in the House and 6 Senate seats. But this year, the level of interest Republican voters have even exceeds the number from 2010. That metric has them up 17% at 67%, saying they are very enthusiastic to vote versus just 50% for Democrats. The GOP also has an advantage with men that exceeds the left's advantage with women, and has increased its share of white voters now up to 57% support in that demographic. In the latest lighthearted witticism from Elon Musk, the San Francisco-based Twitter headquarters should undergo a remodeling and be decked out as a homeless shelter. The recent senior shareholder at 9.2% of Twitter's total stock float, Musk posted an impromptu tweet poll to gauge the public's feelings towards this homeless shelter idea. In that poll, 92.1% of respondents gave a thumbs up to the idea. Musk made the observation that his suggestion would be a better use of the huge building since, quote, no one shows up anyway, unquote, implying, hopefully, that most Twitter techs and administrators work remotely and are not just sloughing work. Remember the name Jack Higgins, a British author famous for World War II spy and thriller novels? Well, he passed away at his home in the Channel Islands on the 9th of April, just this past Saturday. Higgins' real-life name was Henry Patterson, and he spent his earlier years as a teacher in the city of Leeds, where he wrote part-time as a hobby at first, then as a profession, after his 1975 novel, The Eagle Has Landed, earned him over £1 million upon publishing. During his life, Higgins penned 85 such works. In all, his work sold over 250 million copies worldwide. Higgins' publisher, HarperCollins, claimed his death marked the end of an era. Henry Patterson, Jack Higgins, leaves behind a wife and 4 grown children. He was 92. And in our Just In Case You Missed It segment, in a recent UPI News short, apparently an unidentified foul smell has been plaguing residents of Glenpool, Oklahoma. The stench is described as being sewer-like, but when city officials conducted a mass investigation of the city's sewer system, the smell from the underground network was just rosy. It wasn't to blame. In a Facebook post, city officials have reassured the local citizenry that they are aware of the sewer-like smell in parts of the city, but as of yet cannot determine the cause of the odor. The Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality wants also to reassure the public that they are doing everything in their power to combat the problem. All citizens are encouraged to keep an eye peeled for anything that might be the source of the problem. If found, and contact their local authorities. And Brad, I mean, this is Oklahoma where, the wind comes sweeping down the plains. You think it could be excessive cow farts or something, or global warming? Anyway, to our listeners in Glenpool, Oklahoma, the problem is likely just temporary, so don't make a stink about it. It'll be over soon. And on that note, this has been The Dispatch. Technical advice and editing has been provided by Brad Neufeld. Please continue to listen to Resilience Talk Radio for uplifting advice and perspectives. I'm Tom Gandley.